Hedge, hedge, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday, January 9th, 2011. This is Day 9 Daily number 236. I rotated my camera. How rude of me. It's important that you can see my little drawer behind me where I keep my Day 9 clothes. And of course, it's only shirts because, as you know, nothing exists below here at all. In the slightest. I'm actually a Muppet, as was determined by the TeamLiquid.net thread. You should go read it. I laughed and thought, it's surprisingly true. Because when I was younger, I actually had really long hair. Like, this was about as short as my hair used to get. When I was younger, I'll actually take my headphones off. Yeah, this is about as short as it used to be. My bangs used to actually go down to my mouth. So my brother called me Floppy and told me I was a Muppet. And not in a mean way, in a sweet, endearing way, but I was little Floppy. Hello, little Floppy brother. And it was like, hi, Nick. But exciting news, I just got back from Las Vegas, not so much to do booze and hookers, but instead, I was at the CES convention. Oh, it was so fun. There was all sorts of amazing electronic gadgetry. Literally everything was in 3D. 3D plasma televisions and computers and like Brita water filters, and like the water would like pop out at you if you had the right glasses on. It was amazing. And I was doing booth work with Super Micro where we were shoutcasting some crowd matches, and that was a lot of good fun. But interestingly, I am getting one consistent first thing that people say, which is, you are very tall. That is the only thing that people really say when they meet me right now. I am 6'3", that is 191 centimeters. And again, that's this part, that's 191 centimeters, because again, absolutely no lower body or legs, as I am a Muppet. So that's always fun to let people know that I'm in fact a towering nerd, which means that my nerd back, which means, of course, this little posture, this thing, is even more accentuated by my lanky physique. And of course I got sick at the convention, which happens like every time I go travel. But hey, no big deal, made it back. The one thing that I do need to let my dear viewers know, Day 9 Daily number 234 and 235, we tried to do remotely, which is like I tried to log into my computer from Vegas and then make it go live. 234 worked, 235 like half worked. So 235 is a little bit delayed in getting uploaded, but it will be up. And in particular, we're actually going to be using number 235 for a Newbie Tuesday. So I won't announce that yet. But of course, when it is up, then I'll definitely be making references to it. Ugh, this is going to be a good cast. I can tell the hiccups, the pressure right here in the sternum. I love it. Today's cast is EG Machine vs. KiwiKaki from the recent SCReddit Invitational tournament, of which DJ Wheat and I casted the third, fourth place match. The final's been postponed to when both players can do it, so that is going to be in the future. But this match was immediately like the most requested match that I've had in a long time, so I kind of have to do it. Contrary to popular belief, I actually plan my dailies out a little bit. You know, I kind of do the matchup, what I'm going to be focusing on, especially the Fun Day Mondays and stuff, but I completely interrupted everything to do this match. So, exciting times. Just want to briefly announce that Fun Day Mondays tomorrow, there's still time to submit replays to Monday at day9.tv. Submit games of you Nidus Worm only-ing as Zerg. You cannot attack your opponent through a direct frontal assault. You must Nidus Worm to attack. And the additional restriction exists that you must be building 2 Nidus Worms at once at least one point in time during the game. Submit those to Monday at day9.tv. And dear admins, if you want to log in and start sorting those, that would be great! Oh, thank you, admins. Thank you very much. So without any further ado, we're actually going to be doing this whole series, this whole damn series. We have a Zerg versus Protoss coming up, and I will now begin drinking a little bit of water. Yep, see here's Fear Gorm. By the way, the SC Redditors, holy shit, did they make it an organized tournament. Oh my god. They gave me like a little caster sheet. They always did these sorts of announcements on what the score was, so that way all the observers and players knew. Like, everything was just on the ball. I bet you that if it were real life, they'd be constantly coming by like a hot towel, and when I wasn't, you know, on camera, they'd be massaging my shoulders, making sure I was as relaxed and focused as possible. These are the sort of things that I just want to throw out there, so that way major organizations like MLG and ESL will be guaranteed to give me a massage while casting next time. This is my build. This is my technique. Either way, nothing out of the ordinary has happened at this point in time. This is game 1 of a best of 3. Here's the EG Machine's Overlord heading to the bottom right. Here's EG Machine's other Overlord heading to the top right. Notice that he's scouting the close position first. KiwiKaki, sound on, KiwiKaki, alright, good. KiwiKaki has his assimilator in the bottom left corner, building first before the gateway. Whoa! You'll notice that I gave no prep before this point in time in the game, because it's important that we kind of go into these games... Something's wrong with my washing machine. That's actually dangerous. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, you can hear that, right? Like... did someone like put a snake into the machine? Like, why is it clogging up like that? That occasionally happens that someone like overfills the washing machine and all of a sudden it's like, and like it's right next to my wall. So last time that happened, it like shorted out and we had to buy a new washing machine. And because money does not flow freely from my television screen when I wash it, I don't want that to happen again. Woo! Alright, cool. Now that we've had that little break, now we've had that little good thing happen today, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the idea of normalcy. This is kind of similar to what we were talking about when we were watching the White Raw against the Little One game. The whole idea of don't let your perceptions of what is normal, of what you usually see, define for you what is good or bad. Always make an argument for why something could be good or bad. So again, we will be focusing on KiwiKaki. I know we've been doing a little bit more Protoss stuff in the last week. That's fine. This was just so requested. We have to focus on KiwiKaki. So indeed, there is his gateway going down. And of course, as usual, making sure that everything else is in the right settings. Good, good. Wouldn't be a daily without it. Now, why would he be getting this assimilator very fast? Anytime you see something like this, what is the obvious thing an assimilator does? Early. Get you a lot of gas. Alright? State the obvious. What does a geyser early get you? A lot of gas. Have you ever been doing a build and then said, man, I don't really have very much gas. Maybe you can do this. Or maybe this is actually quite subtle. This is something that won't happen. Where you'll have something like 50 gas. And you know you want to be making stalkers and sentries as a big part of your force. If that's what your build is, it will never even dawn on you, should I get a Stargate right now? Could I? Could I get a Robo with Immortals right now? Could I go for a Dark Shrine right now? These things will never pop into your head, because what happens is you glance up at your resources and you say, alright, what do I have enough resources for? Alright, forges, gateway units, expansions? Okay, cool. Of these that I can afford, what is the best option? That's normal for your brain to only consider the possibilities within the amount of money that you have. But, every now and again, be really liberal when you're watching a game. Be really liberal and just say something like, would it be nice to have Dark Templar right now? And if for some reason your answer ends up being yes, for instance, you can totally just do something like what KiwiKaki is doing. And as we can see, alright, there's the block. I'm going to actually ignore this. As we can see, this pool from Machine went down at a pretty typically, ordinarily, usually good time. And we can clearly see that this gateway is going to be able to be finished in time. You can clearly see that there's no pressure by KiwiKaki, or from KiwiKaki there, that is. So then we're going to see this cybernetics core go down. Is that a complete wall? It might be. It very well might be. I'll have to investigate it in a moment. I would imagine that there's some little hole there, but I don't want to presume until I know. But I mean, we're even seeing, wow, 2 sets of Zerglings come out. A lot of times it's fun to take your fears and then look at them in-game. Whenever I do something like go gas gate, initially I would go, oh my god, maybe the Zerglings will come in time. So when his earliest possible Zerglings get halfway down his ramp, my Zealot's almost done. Alright, yeah, I guess I am fine. I guess I am just hallucinating my fears. Oh yeah, easy peasy, nothing to worry about. Cybernetics core is now finishing. We see a Forge, we see a Robo going down. This is usual KiwiKaki nuttiness. Hasn't really gotten, we haven't really gotten to see exactly what he has in store for us. But oh hey, now we do. There's a really fast +1 upgrade, has pulled all the guys out of gas. Alright. Oh, if this game turns out the way that I think it will, then this is going to be amazing. Now, at this point in time, I'm sure a lot of you have a good sense of what's going to happen, right? Dear chat, please feel free to type what is going to happen, even if you've seen it or not. Alright, let's think, let's think. We see a forge with +1, no gas being mined, a robo going down. He's going for a fast warp prism drop. Ta-da! Alright, great. We've done our fast, awesome analysis. That's good. Now, what you're probably going to be thinking right now is, oh, that's a cool strategy. He's just going for drops. But I want you to think about what problem this strategy solves. By doing this, you know, like for instance, how many of you have ever gone for a big warp gate push, right? Ever gone for some sort of big, crazy warp gate push? And there's a whole bunch of spine crawlers at the front of the base, and you can't get in. Such as this spine crawler right here that is incidentally being placed the very second I look there. How many of you have ever had that happen? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you have. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just warp directly into his base? Yeah, that would be great. We can actually now start to answer questions like... Well, actually, let's not answer that question. Let's ask some questions. So again, first, you're maybe playing, you've had some 4 warp gates not go so well, and you think to yourself, as you fix your hair, oh yes, so good, you think to yourself, I can't break this, there's too many spine crawlers. The queens are all at the front, the roaches are well positioned. I can't really get up into his base. Okay, so now you can conclude something like, well, if I could get into the back of his base, maybe this build would be good. And then you can conclude something like, so maybe this build will be good on blistering sands. Hey, cool, we've just made a conclusion based upon our initial experience of, I cannot really seem to break his front. Darn. After that, and after you've decided maybe a warp prism drop will be really, really effective, then you need to try that build out, and you need to see what problems come up. You heard me say at the very start of the game, you heard me say, this gas geyser, this sort of thing, a lot of times, you don't consider it in your build order. You'll consider it in obvious circumstances. If you like try to Dark Templar rush and you realize you have no gas, you'll say, I guess I need to get more gas. Probably when doing some sort of fast warp gate drop, fast warp prism drop, you might encounter the problem of, I don't have enough gas to get the +1 upgrade and get my robotics bay down at the same time. Now I do! Ta-da! I mean, that sort of thing seems like a little bit of a refinement and an adjustment. A lot of times, conclusions like getting earlier gas can come from something like, I want a Dark Templar rush, but I keep getting attacked and killed before my DTs get up. If I had sentries, I could stay alive. How do I get both sentries and a Dark Shrine? I get a lot of gas. These sorts of things. So I'm not sure whether it's better to get a later gas and a faster robo. But I think it might be better to get an earlier gas, a slightly later robo. And the reason the robo is later is obviously if we go gas and then gate, it means that our cybernetics core is later, and as a result, our robo is later. If we do that a little bit later, it looks like everything kind of finishes at the same time. This is sort of standard KiwiKaki stuff where, like, just everything works. Everything is so seamless, and look at this. As he's traveling, we're going to see that this ground weapon upgrade is going to finish. This is actually a pretty marvelously timed build, and if there's one player who I'm consistently impressed by his timing, it would absolutely be KiwiKaki. So, of course, here it is, the good old Warp Prism play. We now can even see how practiced this build is. The probe was bought, so that way it could build a pylon there to continue to warp things in. KiwiKaki probably going to be saving Chrono Boost so we can do a big mass Chrono Boost on his gateways. But per usual, we're already seeing that it means we don't have to deal with this spine crawler. We don't have to deal with this spine crawler. We can see how there's a lot of Zerglings out right now. Even if there were some roaches in here, what would you do if you saw some roaches? What would you do if you saw some roaches? I don't know, put guys back in gas, get immortals, and then bring them into the battle too. Until then, keep on warping in zealots. It's really, really good. This is a very cool, clean, simple little build that, of course, we'll be finishing up in a pretty short period of time. I mean, there's not an extraordinarily large amount of unique things going on. Oh, this photon cannon thing is pretty nice. Again, how often do you get to build photon cannons at the edge of someone's creep? Wouldn't that be great? Have you ever saw a situation where you say, if only I had photon cannons here, that would help this push? How many of you have ever thought that? In this specific attack, it would be very helpful if I had photon cannons here. Maybe you should start thinking it. I assume the answer is no, unless you are, unless you're Combat X, then you're just building cannons everywhere. But I mean, it's so important to actually stop and think in a very free sense what would be great. Because I'm going to finish this replay, and I want to talk briefly about what is the big wall that prevents the low diamond and high platinum from getting all the way to the top. That's the one thing I want to finish with, and it all comes down to a strategy like this. It's the idea of very free decision-making. So at this point in time, not really any transitioning from KiwiKaki. Just going to be warping in Zealots. Should be a fairly clean finish to this game. A lot of patience going on here. Units organizing themselves very well. Didn't really control that battle because he didn't need to. Now we have some Stalkers being warped in. Alright, cool, but still very limited. And there's the good games, and there's the well played. Alright, cool. Let's go ahead and come back. Alright, now, here comes water. What did I say at the start of this whole daily? I said a lot of times, what pollutes players' thinking is the idea of, this is normally what I see. Therefore, that's what I should see, right? People say, I normally see players go 3 warp gate early expand, so if someone goes for a 2 warp gate early expand, I'm going to find him and say, you idiot, you could have made a 3rd warp gate and expanded. You totally have the money to, and then you can get a bunch of sentries and push. That is poisonous thinking because you're not actually saying, why would he go 2 warp gate, and what's good about that? You're saying that's not the normal thing, so it's bad. I hate that. I hate that decision making so much. In reality, what's happening is that people are coming up with problems all the time with their play. Oh, God, I really hate dealing with this or with that. Oh, Banshees are really giving me trouble after I go blink Stalkers. How do I account for that? So people tend to just look to what the good players do and just copy that and say, I guess I'll just do that. But they never stop and say, how do I solve this problem in an easy fashion? Wow, in close positions, it seems like every time I push the Zerg, there's a bunch of spine crawlers up there shutting me down. It seems like his front is so well defended, I can never break it. So why not just not hit his front? Why not just warp into the back? And now what happens is a lot of players will watch what KiwiKaki does in this game, and they'll copy it exactly, and they'll start dropping, and then they'll start encountering some kind of problems. Right? They will start encountering a player who didn't go a bunch of Zerglings and then tech to layer. They'll encounter a player who, for instance, went roaches and stayed on hatch tech, was just making a whole bunch of roaches. I want you to stop and really think, how would I adjust in this position? How would I adjust? Not how would I completely only go Zealot and keep warping them in and say, well, I have to build the cannons because that's part of the strategy. Don't be owned by the strategy. It's your freaking strategy. For instance, you can just walk in there and see a Roach Worm warp in 1 round of Zealots and immediately begin mining gas and warp in a round of Stalkers. Nothing wrong with it. Completely reasonable. You can start getting a 2nd gas and begin getting Immortals. There's a lot of freedom that you have in that. So that build was very simple. It was very clear exactly what was going on in it. Very much so clear. That it was a tactic, and by tactic I mean it's something that you just sort of whip up, and in a 30-second period that's where all the action happens, and that's fine. It wasn't really a long-term strategy, didn't really have a lot of next steps in KiwiKaki's play, but that's fine, because you know what? That build order, I'm not going to call that a sexy build order, I'm not going to call that a creative build order, I'm going to call that a build order that solved a problem very, very well. And actually, let's just go through a little bit brief more while this one replay is loading. We can think about it the following way. I can't break his front. What's a good way to do damage? Well, by warping in his back. I can't quite kill him because his Zerglings are just a little too powerful. I guess I need to get gas earlier so I can get a +1 upgrade. I don't quite have enough gas to get that +1 and my Robo. I guess I better go assimilator first. You see how it was problem, solution, and then we ended up with this build that when we watch it, we just go, ooh, and we shiver because it's just so scary how brilliant it is. You can do that too. Just make sure you address your problems and think about how you want to fix them. So this game is the really recommended game. This is the one we're really going to drill into a little bit more deeply with KiwiKaki. First, scouting very early, building a pylon at his expansion. And of course, because I love subtlety, I am going to very much so obsess about this placement. One pylon built on the far right side of the assimilator at the north end, right? Flush right here. I really want to see what specifically he's going to pull off with that. We see a forge going down. There's a tight little wall right there. Nothing can squeeze through. Is he going to actually end up making a pylon? Would not be surprised. KiwiKaki almost always build pylons. Alright, cool. There he is. There is where he's going right now. And we're going to do the usual exercise that I do. I'm going to pause and say why everything so far. And in particular, what does it cause our opponent to do? That's probably the most important one. What does it cause our opponent to do? Too often, it's so easy to go, well, what does it help me stop now? You know, it's like, I will build immortals because that will help me kill roaches. What you really want to say is, I'm going to build immortals, which means my opponent will make less roaches if he's smart. That's the correct way to think. Because in StarCraft, you don't look back, you look forward. It's always about what you're going to do, not about what you all did. So, yeah. So, okay, cool. This pylon will delay his expansion, likely forcing him to make an earlier pool. Since I have delayed his expansion and forced him to make an earlier pool, I should probably respond by getting my forge early, which will likely mean that he's still going to be trying to gear up to do more expanding when he can. So, I mean, come on. If an early forge is going to encourage him to expand faster, whereas this pylon will prevent him from expanding, you're starting to see how Zerg is kind of caught in a loop that isn't so comfortable for him. So in general, Zerg is just going to be expanding a little bit later, getting the queen up a little bit earlier, these sorts of things. So here's our Probe Meister coming out. He clearly is going to be setting up an expansion when he can. There's the Photon Cannon going down. I'm still kind of noticing how nice this placement is. There's the Expo going down for Machine, very typical stuff. But again, we're all talking about KiwiKaki today. Uh-oh, Machine doing his usual goody goodness. Good forethought there by KiwiKaki. And there's the Nexus going down. Very curious to see where he's going to be building his second cannon, because you'll obviously know this one doesn't cover like that space right there. There's the cannon going down. Hey, look at this. Look at this little Mr. Fantastic super stretch pylon. He is just very much so covering everything. Look at the forge at the wall off over here and the cannon being able to cover the backside. We can now build something like a pylon and a cybernetics core here, or cybernetics core here and a pylon there, wall all these little holes off. So cool. Gateway going down at the front, Machine doing his usual jazz, Probe sneaking around the back. Alright, cool. I'm going to start doing something that is what I said before, but I'm going to repeat it because it's so important. Every time we do something, we both want to think about, okay, anytime we watch somebody do something, a lot of times we start to go, well, what could he be doing, right? What could he be doing? Anytime I see someone get a really fast assimilator, I think, what could he be doing? Well, most of the time, you have enough gas, so he's probably going to go Dark Templar or some sort of super sentry build. Maybe he really wants to do, like, double Stargate Void Ray. Again, I see what he's doing, and I think, well, what are the possibilities now? What I want to do for KiwiKaki is pretend that we're KiwiKaki. So whenever we do something, I want to think, well, what does this mean for me and mean for my opponent? So again, it's not, oh, I built a gas geyser now. Oh, it means I have enough gas to build lots of sentries. Because that's thinking too much like an observer. We want to think like a player right now. So we have this good coverage as a player. We know that this is going to make us very, very safe from a lot of run-bys, a lot of early roach plays we're going to be pretty safe from. We're getting our gas geysers early. Okay, cool. This is pretty typical stuff in this matchup. Alright, we're starting to wall this off. At this point in the game, I'm going to note that we're not really attacking at all. It means our opponent really can make drones. There's no reason he would be unable to make drones. As we see, drones going down. Also, because we're not pressuring him, he can tech a little bit. He can do both of these. Whenever we're pressuring him, he has to build an army. Whenever we're not pressuring him, he does not have to build an army. So he is allowed to powering meaning building drones, or tech. Alright, so there's the wall off coming down. Okay, good. I don't really see a second gas coming up. Our opponent is not really going to know that, though. And, you know, honestly, at this point in the game, it's so important to emphasize, look at KiwiKaki's vision. He's got nothing, no vision. This cannon, as we can see, is not necessary. In the unit counting station, one Zergling. He has a Zergling and 2 queens. I think those queens are going to make it cross-map and do anything anytime soon. So yeah, this is pretty much the full knowledge space of KiwiKaki. Pretty damn important to note. Pretty damn important to note, because KiwiKaki is doing everything blind. He is blindly getting all these geysers, right? He's blindly getting all these geysers. Now, I do have a little bit of a spoiler this game. I'm not going to share it with you. I'm going to say that KiwiKaki does some unusual things this game, hence why it was so incredibly requested. Anytime you see something that you don't immediately understand, you should be certain to rewatch it. I'm not going to speed through it this time. I'm going to gently go through it the first time, but I'm aware that I may need to rewind it. I may need to rewind it. KiwiKaki, in my eyes, probably one of the top 3 problem solvers with Protoss in terms of build order. Period. Now I'm not talking about, oh, well, the foreigners, because I'm one of the people that really doesn't think the Koreans are better than the foreigners. So yeah, I mean, I really want to think about the fact that he is getting these assimilators blind. He's not seeing anything. You're seeing him continue to clamp off holes. This little entrance is getting blocked off. This back one hasn't been blocked off. Nothing going on in the main, and it looks like he is just chrono boosting workers, not getting any upgrades. He's getting warp gate. He has 1 stalker out. He got the stalker blind. He got the zealot out blind. Now, I actually, honestly, truly, have only looked at KiwiKaki for like 4 minutes. And I want to note a feeling that probably a lot of you are getting. I'll even turn off the production tab. A feeling that probably a lot of you are getting right now is, well, can he get away with that? And again, I'm talking about you, not as the observer. I'm talking about you as the player. Have you ever been at 50 food as Protoss, and you've only made cannons and probes? You have a zealot, a stalker. You feel like, oh my god, I don't have anything, right? I'm fucked. I'm gonna die. Well, take that feeling of I'm totally screwed and examine, is that real? When I was watching this game, I immediately thought to myself, is KiwiKaki really okay? I mean, especially because he's playing blind. Well, I'm going to go examine. Looks like this layer just got done. We have some more units coming out right now. Roach Warren's getting close to done. Just drones. And drones. Wait a minute. Go to the unit counting stations. 2 Zerglings still. Oh my gosh. Actually, look at this. Isn't this a revealing little tab? We're 7 minutes and 33 seconds into the game. At 6 minutes and 30 seconds, a lot of 4 warp gate pushes are finished, and aggression can really begin ramping up, right? Can really begin ramping up. And we're at 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and people have like 2 units each. Look at this. 50 drones, 2 Zerglings, 2 queens, 1 zealot, 1 stalker. Big thing I'm noticing, man, KiwiKaki is not all that far behind in probes. He got his Nexus up late because he's building cannons and pylons, but he's been chrono boosting almost the whole time. So here comes some extremely late gateways and a Stargate. Okay, so at this point in time, KiwiKaki has not actually forced his opponent really to do anything. He seems to be able to defend against a wide variety of attacks, but he cannot really kill his opponent early on, and I think Machine knows this. Again, KiwiKaki is extraordinarily meticulous with his unit control, as we see right there. Not something you need to do. That does not seem integral to getting this Stargate. Well, make sure you keep your first zealot at above 4 Zergling kills. Like, it doesn't really matter. I will say, though, Machine is looking extremely well defended, right? He's looking very well defended. Machine can hold off all sorts of jazz. Oh, how Machine is in a good shape, right? He's doing fine. But we aren't attacking Machine. Have you ever been like a Protoss player who does a lot of timing pushes against Zerg, and oh, the Roach Burrow timing push crushes me. Oh, it crushes me again. How miserable. You keep doing that. So what do you think? You start saying something like, well, maybe if I add another Immortal in, maybe I guess I need to get my Robo earlier. Okay, so I need to cut these 2 Stalkers, but then I really need those Stalkers for here, and you kind of really trying to rack your brain. And the answer is you don't actually even have to attack then. if he makes 8 spine crawlers, it's sometimes a great choice just to not attack those 8 spine crawlers, right? Just expand and power yourself. So as we see, this fleet beacon is going down. Oh my goodness, how intimidating. We're really starting to... Oh yeah, and there's an observer pinging the minimap. How dare you? Yes, we can see all of everyone there. Fleet beacon going down. 1 Phoenix coming up. Another gateway going down. Yep, here are some sentries. But we're noting that he's saving up money, so that way it looks like he really will be able to afford a mothership when this thing finishes. He's getting a 5th gateway. Still really no pressure put on our opponent. Our opponent literally gets to do absolutely whatever he wants, completely. So I'm actually going to speed this up, because we really want to be focusing just on what KiwiKaki's doing. We kind of know what he's doing. He's getting a freaking mothership when he gets unpylon blocked. Here's a little poking action. Hey, we're kind of noticing... Okay, we're noticing a lot of stalkers and sentries. Still very defensive plays, right? Not a lot of zealots, just a lot of ranged units so we can pick off things from afar. And then, of course, the mothership that he is getting. Now we see a bunch more gateways coming up. Oh, you know what's kind of cool about KiwiKaki's play, this observer? Oh, here's the +1 attack upgrade. KiwiKaki is basically doing a normal Protoss play, right? 6 warp gates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's getting the +1 upgrade. He's getting the stalkers and the sentries. But he's also getting a mothership. That is the one real big difference. The Twilight Council, I'm not that concerned about. Yeah, you know what? 6 warp gate with blink. Standard fare. Pretty typical stuff. Absolutely nothing coming out right now. Come on, come on, come on. The mothership's going to come out right now. And this mothership comes out right now. And we're actually going to wait a moment until blink comes up. And now I'm going to start talking about this idea of having a problem and then problem solving. Alright, so now the blink is about done, and I would say that Protoss would be in a good shape to do a little push. Hey, one of my zealots isn't cloaked. Wait a minute. Maybe I should kill? Nah, he's going to let it live. So, okay, let's talk about problems and problem solving. So, once upon a time, I'm a Protoss player, and I start doing some 6 warp gate pushes, right? I start doing some 6 warp gate pushes, and I am noticing that I can kill a lot of players with it, but the players I don't kill quickly, I don't have a good transition out of it. Maybe I'm going 6 warp gate a little too hard, not thinking of a next step. So what do? I branch out to things like making sure I continue to make probes, doing things like getting blink stalker play. Okay, cool. So I'm a 2-basing Protoss. I go blink stalkers, but oh, those burrowed roaches really are giving me some trouble. Let me get some observers. So now you're thinking, well, maybe I should just cut out that 6th gateway and just go 5-gate stalker with blink, and I have my observers so I can see things now. Now I can blink up and down the high ground. Problems and problem solving has always been kind of stepping forward along. And then we did our little thing that we were talking about last game, where we said, what would be great right now? A lot of times, in a lot of circumstances, that's a bad way to think. For instance, let's say, I don't know, I'm Zerg, and I don't see a medevac coming into my base, and the medevac lands, drops a bunch of medic marine, and kills off a bunch of drones. You know what would be good right now? It would be great now if I had 5 spine crawlers there, so that drop wouldn't have done damage. That would be good now if that existed. Okay. But that doesn't mean that next game better build 5 spine crawlers in the back of my base. Instead, what it means is, well, I just shouldn't let drops get to the back of my base. Maybe I should watch the minimap. And when I see it, tell my Mutilus to go back there and kill the drop off. Cool, I've solved the problem with looking at my minimap instead of by spending money on these spine crawlers. Again, it's a very, very big curse to say, what would be good now? Therefore, what should I do next game? No. A lot of times that's really, really, really wrong, as we can see from that example. However, it's important to be a little bit liberal in terms of creating new strategies. Now, in terms of what would be good now, most people think of it in terms of keeping me alive, preventing me from dying. Oh my god, all those roaches got to my front. Maybe next time I need 8 cannons. Oh, the drop got to my back. Maybe I need 5 spine crawlers next time. That's bad. But in terms of doing things back to the opponent, wouldn't it be great right now if I had Dark Templar? In Control played an amazing game against EG Machine where he went for a bunch of Blink Stalkers and then just got DTs, and Machine just didn't really have that much detection. You sort of start noticing a deficiency of your opponent's play, right? So we're seeing KiwiKaki get a mothership, right? We're seeing him get a mothership. Another way of stating this is that, hey, you know what? My attack seems to not be working so well. My big 6 warp gate push attacks just really are not working that great. Where is the mothership? There it is. Yeah, my 6 warp gate stuff not working so great. If I had a mothership, you know what? That would allow me to do this push, and if I can even pick off his overseers, I can continue to do a lot of damage. What would help me pick off overseers? Blink Stalkers would help me pick off overseers, wouldn't they? Cool, now we're starting to see why Blink Stalker plus Mothership works out really, really well. Again, problem, I need to kill off the Overseers to make my Mothership good. Solved, making Blink. Problem, my 6 Warp Gate push seems to be getting killed by these players who have a ton of units, like Roaches and Hydras. So how do we solve it? Easy, make a Mothership, because Cloak is not really something that these players have. So this is kind of very goofy play coming up by KiwiKaki, right? Just sort of darting in, getting himself into a far back corner, picking all this stuff up. And how on earth will he get out? That is right, he recalls. Oh my goodness, what an amazing move that was, right? Now that is kind of kick-ass. So, in a lot of circumstances, like for instance, in this circumstance, when I saw the Mothership, my immediate gut reaction was, oh, this will really help bolster a 6 Warp Gate push. Kind of hard to be able to do that. So all that sort of good stuff can obviously happen. But anytime you start branching out and you start solving problems in cool ways, think about the possibilities that this allows for you. And KiwiKaki, of all people, really seems to sit down and think, yeah, how do I really, really make use of this in a really amazing way? And there you go. Get a Mothership, not just for Cloak, because you know what? You can run all your Stalkers around and get your army out. And you can even get an army in later with another big mass recall. Kind of a cool tactic. But you know what? There's a lot important here that we're not really emphasizing enough. For instance, the fact that all these gases went down very early. The fact that he got 4 warp gates and started making units as he was going for his Mothership. The fact that this Blink came out very, very slow. The fact that he is expanding in the midst of doing all of this. These are all sorts of things that are essential to this strategy, because one thing to note, maxed Zerg versus a not maxed Protoss, right? No matter how sexy that tactic may have felt, you still have to be able to hold off like all of this. And that is a lot of this to be worried about. And looks like a free Phoenix. So let's go ahead and watch this battle and see how this battle pans out. Now he's coming in with all his units. Again, he's doing the good old blink back. He probably could cast a Vortex. Doesn't look like he has enough energy to. The good old usual defense, but you know what? Not a lot of these units are quite so visible. Hey, you know what? Those Overseers are right there. Can I pick them off? Sure, I can just walk directly up to them. And now, what is Machine seeing? Not very much at all. He's actually trying to get up here to maybe pick off that Mothership. But he can't even see the whole freaking Nexus there. This is a very, very unusual spot to be in. We're seeing the mid-game army reinforced by the fact that most of it is cloaked and has Blink. If you were going Colossus with a lot of sentries, getting a Mothership would not reinforce as well with this Stalker. Now, you're kind of hearing me say that, and a lot of you are probably going, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me why Stalkers with Blink are probably going to be pretty damn good with a Mothership. But how many of you actually sit down with weird units for your respective races? How many of you sit down and look at your Zerg play and say, if I got 5 Overseers to contaminate, what would I want to contaminate? What units would work really well with a whole bunch of my enemies' bases being contaminated all the time as a result? If I got a lot of contaminate things, what would my resource distribution be like? I'd have a lot less gas. How would I deal with that? If you're a Terran player, you know, how do I get ghosts and use them a lot more in Terran versus Terran? What do ghosts allow me to do? What does it make my opponent do? Well, because we didn't talk as much about that making our opponent do stuff play. If our our opponent sees us getting a whole bunch of Blink Stalkers, he's likely to be emphasizing Hydralisks a little more. Some Roaches, but generally the Zerglings and the Hydralisks. Something to be able to combat the fact that they both have really long range. Probably some Roaches and Hydras. Okay, so what is that? Again, if we make a bunch of Blink Stalkers, what does that force our opponent to do? Alright, to get a lot of the normal unit mix. Alright, well, I'll solve this problem by getting this one unit, the Mothership, that doesn't really have any good response for Zerg in this situation, right? This is actually looking extremely difficult to deal with. Let's go ahead and come back to the beginning of the game, and let's actually remove this overlay and start looking at how our Zerg player can possibly begin responding at a lot of these phases in the game. This phase in the game, I mean, yeah, getting Roaches with speed. We're looking here. Alright, let's actually go into the Machine Cam. Machine Cam. Okay, good. Let's not have it be on his screen because he plays a little too fast for me. Especially at ×4. Okay, so he's seeing the Zerg not expand. Or excuse me, he's seeing his Protoss buddy not expand. He sees a Phoenix. He's making some Roaches. Goodness, this is ordinary. This is so by the book. Okay, now we see some Roaches moving forward. Maybe he can do a little bit of Roach harassment. Okay. Generally, when you don't see a player move out at this point, and of course he generally does move out at this point, you think, well, I guess I'll do a little bit of damage. You come back here, you see a lot of Stalkers. You see a lot of Stalkers. Look, he's getting a Spire. Almost everyone will be getting a Spire at this phase in the game. Where is it? Yeah, there's a Spire. We even see Hydralisk Den coming up. A good mid-game transition, right? Given this setup that he's seen, he's not going to suddenly go mass Baneling. You know, there's too many sentries out. There's that mid-game army of Stalkers and sentries that Banelings don't really perform very well against. This seems like the usual sort of typical response. I do think that Protoss, or excuse me, Zerg, could probably be taking another expansion and all this. His money's high enough too. Could definitely be taking that one. Expo done. Mothership coming up right now. Phoenix doing the good old follow. And I mean, wow, KiwiKaki just looks so passive. And look at this unit counting station. Or excuse me, the resource station. 144 to 111. Machine is actually playing incredibly well, which is just generally something that he does. I'm actually just sort of poking around thinking if there's a good way for Zerg to deal with this. Generally, Zerg tends to struggle at the 200 food mark. Generally, that's where the real pain for Zerg comes in, is when he hits maxed. You always kind of want your opponent to attack when you're at like 177, because that means that your army is a lot better and more well composed than his. But once you hit max, you're just like, ugh, I hope I have the right composition. I mean, getting a good amount of Hydrals at this stage, that's going to be great against someone who's making a lot of gateway units. You're always a little worried about the Colossusing player, hence why these Corruptors are coming out. But it's like so hard to be able to respond to this in a very specific way. This is so cool. This is so cool. And this sort of tacticness, this sort of tacticianry is kind of impressive to think how this game, how similar it is to the game that we just watched. Right, so there's one expansion going down. In the game we just watched, it is a cool tactic, warping things into the back of his base. It's an even cooler thing to time it out really nicely so that you get your 4 warp gates done at just the right time and begin warping things in right as they finish. But then little additions like getting the +1 attack upgrade, getting that pylon with the probe in his base, getting the gas first, that's the real art. That is what really strengthened that by a significant margin. So getting the blink, timing it so that way you can do the retreat micro. Look at this, the energy just hit 100. He can do a mass recall out anytime he so pleases. And because this attack was just so cool to see. I mean, by the way, just think of how smart this is in a very sophisticated metagame sense, right? Like the idea that most Zerg players will be preparing for the 200 food army, right? They will be preparing to hit 200 food, and then do a big attack with lots of money saved up, and then continue to bolster. Do what I call a 300 food push. You attack when you're max, and you have $5,000 in the bank, and then you just keep rallying units so you never get unmaxed. In a sense, you've attacked with 300 food worth of unit. Like, that 300 food push is the general trend of Zerg play. That's kind of what Zergs do. So look, right as Zerg's getting maxed, Protoss comes in here and kills off every single one of his bases, right? There's one base going down. And by the way, the annoying thing is that, honestly, this sort of tactic you could probably pull off even by running here and then blinking out there. Mothership isn't absolutely necessary. But now we're seeing all this goody goodness go on. Be a little careful that you don't cause your Stalkers not to blink. And alright, notice that Zerg just now got maxed. There's the mass recall out. Interesting. We have now shut down Zerg's ability to do that 200 food push. So beforehand, when I initially watched that Blink Stalker move, I just went, "Her, you can blink in there, kill it, and recall out. I want to do that too." It's not just that he's running in, killing stuff, and blinking out. It's that he's doing it right when Zerg hits around 200 food. How do you determine that? Well, a couple of ways. You could keep track of like this timer. You could say, all right, when Machine's left alone, he gets max when he's like at 14 minutes. Or you could say, in my own build, right around the time my third Nexus finished, that's really when he's getting close to max. These sorts of triggers you establish for yourself. You can base the trigger on him, base the trigger on yourself, but this sort of play is just so brilliant. Even without, I'm going to watch this part of the game one more time, even without killing off these 3 hatches and doing all that sort of obnoxiousness, look at how easy this attack is. Look at how easy this is for the Protoss to be able to defend. He's at 151 food. I'm actually going to keep the production up, and I'm going to keep alternating between these 2 moments. 151 food still has not warped in any more units. Does he lose anything in this battle? Alright, looks like he's lost 2, 3 units. 4. 5, 6. Alright, he's losing a couple probes. Yeah, I mean, KiwiKaki is not building anything here. Okay, now he's built 5 more Stalkers. Okay, alright, cool. Let's do some math. 5 Stalkers is 10 food. So he went from 151 to 129, basically. It looks like he lost about 22 food worth of units. He lost 22 food worth of units and killed off. Alright, Zerg's at 195. He had... Yeah. Alright, 151, right? And okay, Zerg was maxed. Alright. Killed off 70-ish. Yeah, it looks like around... Yeah, alright, cool. Yeah, killed off about 70 food. Anytime you see that, you should just be like, damn, that's a good composition. Holy cow, the Mothership is a defensive unit, especially in combination with Blink Stalkers. Totally not something I would have thought of. God bless you, KiwiKaki, and your creativity for doing all sorts of fancy stuff. So that was the most requested game that I've had in as long as I possibly can remember. So I will be happy to take some questions for your ever so kindly requested content and finish all that good stuff. The Inviswall. So let's go ahead and take this question from Pepkin, who asks, J9. Strategy from the second game seems vulnerable to fast Nidus Worms because KiwiKaki couldn't use his great building placement and cannons at the back of his base. Are Nidus Worms... do Nidus Worms make this build not playable, or am I thinking wrong? I see. Now, one thing that always kind of makes me frown a little bit is when someone asks a great question, makes a great point, and then follows it up with, "Is that wrong? Is that okay?" Like, for instance, Nidus Worms, you know, like can break into the back of the base. You know what? That is an excellent point. Nidus Worms can definitely break in there. So, as a Zerg player, it's time to start thinking about, you know, like what it makes your opponent do. If I am expanding really hard, powering really hard, and gearing up for a big mid-game push, if my opponent doesn't mid-game push, I'm not in a good spot. Is there a way to make him mid-game push? Well, that requires a little bit of thought. How do I kill all the strategies that aren't the mid-game push? Well, you can either scout them, either get the Overseer in a little earlier. You notice Machine really didn't get an Overseer in there very quickly at all. Now, whenever you do something like say, well, I'm going to get an Overseer as a response, right? I'm going to get an Overseer as a response. Always think the next step. What would that Overseer make him do? Well, if my Overseer gets into his base and it spots everything that he's doing, will that make him change his play at all? If I get an Overseer into his base and contaminate half his stuff, how will that affect his push timing? These sorts of things you want to do the next step, especially if you're not quite certain. If I go for a Mothership and he sees it, what will that make him do? Well, I'm pretty sure that will make him get more Corruptors. That will definitely make him get more Overseers. I definitely think he'll have less Roaches. Oh, cool. Now I'm starting to really realize that Stalkers seem to be the smartest thing to do then. If he's going Hydra Corruptor to try to kill my Mothership off, Blink Stalkers seem like the way to go. I'm also thinking that if he's spending so much gas on Hydras and Corruptors, he's probably going to be making some Zerglings. So I want to beat him to the punch. I want to go Mothership. When he sees it, be going Zealot Stalker. And I want to be sure to be getting my Forge upgrades really high, so my Zealots can kill his Zerglings more easily. Excuse me, just starting to step up a little bit more. Hindi Hat says, Dear Day 9, it is great to see a game plan focused on integrating the Mothership's recall ability. Do you know any plans that integrate the Vortex? It seems strictly much more like a tactical ability. And by tactical ability, again, that means like something cool that can happen within a 30-second period of time. I'm interested a lot in the idea of the Mothership as a defensive unit. The idea that like a huge attack would come, but you have a Mothership, so it's all cloaked. But if there is a detector there, you can Vortex everything and then pull your army back. The Vortex really, I think, is a cool way to like be aggressive. Trying to think of some strategies that would revolve around that. Some strategies instead of the tactic. Let's see here. I don't know. I can't poop one out on the fly. I'm trying to think of the other matchups. I don't know. Yep, I don't know. Something to think about. But you know what? That's another really cool thing to do. Like exactly what Hindi Hat said. Is there a strategy that I can base the Vortex around? And let's say we come up with some strategy where it works great against Banshee harassment, right? We get our Mothership and we shut down Banshees with the Vortex, and that's how we defend against all air. Then we were going to say, okay, well, that will make our opponent create more ground, but he's going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage because he's been making these Banshees. How do I exploit that? Well, maybe I should get Speed Zealots a little earlier. So now you have a Speed Zealot Mothership plan in play. So, Mice122 says, Day 9, considering both players were very fragile in the early game and neither had amazing vision of each other, do you consider that a mistake in play? So I'm actually going to rephrase that a little bit. I don't think either player was fragile in the early game. I think that Machine's timing is very good against almost anything that is an early expand play. So, I mean, whenever you see a Protoss player early expand, that actually delays pushes by a lot. So you can get a lot more drones and then get the burrow and the speed upgrade for your roaches a lot later. That's pretty typical. The Protoss one, I would say he didn't scout, which might seem a little bit concerning because... what am I talking about? Oh yeah, KiwiKaki didn't scout, which might seem a little concerning because he just doesn't know, which means his timing push better be damn strong, right? It better be a damn well thought out timing push. A classic example is the Terran Marine Tank Medevac timing push. I don't care if he's going Roach Hydra or Zergling Baneling Muta. That push is really strong, and it happens kinda late. That's why. It's a later timing push, which means it's a much stronger timing push, which means it's more versatile. If you try to push out really fast with a bunch of Marines, you might beat a Roaching player, but lose to a Banelinging player. So you need information plus an early attack. So I do think that now Zergs are going to start to see more and more like the idea of like scouting the opponent and worrying about some of these later term stuff, because I think that players have just now started to expand this idea of maybe I should do stuff later on. Maybe I should be not going for these timing pushes. Maybe I should just go Cannon, Immortal, Templar, expand, and just expand a ton. And then once I have 4 bases, then I start going for a whole bunch of those gateway units. This sort's of cool stuff. So I'm glad KiwiKaki's pushing the front. One thing I forgot to say, I kind of want to win the, a Shorty Award. So if you could go to shortyawards.com, you'll scroll down to gaming, and you'll see my name's there. I think I'm in 2nd place right now. Well, all you have to do is create a Twitter account if you don't have one. Go to twitter.com/day9tv and follow me. And then after you've done that, go to the Shorty Awards page and vote for me. And make sure you include a reason, or else it doesn't include the vote. What this will earn me is a thing that says I won a Shorty Award. And I don't know why, I just want a thing. I will say, some like the greatest parts about tournaments is when they like give you a medal. I'm looking at my medal on the wall, and you're just like, yeah, that's a thing. It was like, yeah, I don't know. So if you would be so kind, go to shortyawards.com, vote for me, and of course follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/day9tv, and like me on Facebook at facebook.com/day9tv. I should probably do more shameless plugging of myself, I think. I don't think I'm shameless enough, or I guess shameful enough. Whatever. Either way, I'm going to go upload 235 now. This game 236 should be up shortly, so thanks so much for tuning in. You're all beautiful.